Hi friends, in this video we want to create a pop-up for a successful payment. Let's assume we are on an e-commerce website, we've made our purchases and is left with payment. So we want to create a pop-up to display a successful payment message whenever a user clicks on the payment button. So we can click this one to see if it works actually. So we'll click on make payment and it displays this success message here. It tells us that we have this check mark here telling us that it was successful. We have a message here, your payment was received successfully. We also have this text here telling us to continue shopping with an arrow pointing to the close icon. So if we want to continue shopping, we have to close this one. So we also have some cool hover effect. So when we click on it, it slides it out. So you can click this to open it and also to close it. So friends, this is what we want to build in this video, and we are building this using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. I want to mention real quick that if you find any value in this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials just like this one. That being said, let's get started. In my code editor, and I'm using Visual Studio Code, I have one HTML, CSS and JS files here. In the HTML file, I have the basic boilerplate with nothing fancy going here. I changed the title to Popup, and I also linked the HTML to the CSS as well as link the HTML to the JS file over here. In the CSS, I only give this basic styling where I remove all margins, remove all paddings, and set box sizing to border box for the entire document. So we'll come back to the HTML. In the body tag, we'll create a div and give it a class container. Now let's give the CSS for this container div. So we'll select it, set width, height, 100 VH. We'll set a background, a linear gradient at an angle of 130 degrees. This purple color with a comma gray. Then we'll set display flex, align item center, justify content center. Head back to the HTML and run this code with the VS Code like server extension. And this is what we have. In the container div, we'll create a button and give it a class payment btn. And the text is make payment. Let's give the CSS for it. So we'll select it. We'll set display block. So we'll give it some padding, 5 pixels top and bottom, 7 pixels left and right. Change the font family to sans serif. Give it some font weight to bolden the font a little. Give it a border radius to round the corners. Remove all outline and borders. Set cursor to pointer. Change the background to this RGBA color code as well as the color to black. So when we save this is what we have. But the original one has this hover effect, so let's add it for it. But before then, let's set some transition. 0.3 seconds should ease in out. So now we can select the button again, colon hover. Then we change the background color to this RGBA color code and change the text color to white. Now we can see, and when we hover, it works for it. So now let's create the pop-up. After the button, we'll create a div with the class Popup. In the Popup, we have this checked entity. We also have this text here. We have this one in paragraph and this small text with this arrow inside of it and the button to close of it. So let's add this in the HTML. In the Popup, we'll create a span and the text is an HTML entity. So it's ampersand and check with this semicolon. And after it, we'll create an H2 with the text successful. And after this, we'll create a P tag. And the text is payment was received successfully. After the paragraph tag, we'll create an H5. And the text is continue shopping. Then after that, we have the HTML entity. Ampersand D, capital A, double R, and a semicolon. After this, we'll create a close button. And the text is closed. So this is pretty much all the HTML markup we need for this project. So let's run this and see what we have. And this is how it looks currently. So let's add the CSS for it. So let's start with the pop-up div. It's inside the container. We'll set height to max content. Background color will be white. We give it a z index so that it will be shown over any item with a lesser z index. We give it 20. We set the padding 0, 2, and 1 rem. We give it a border radius of 1 rem. And the z index will work because we'll be giving it an absolute position later on. This is how it's looking now. Now let's start the span inside the pop-up. We give it the same width and height, which is 30 pixels, and apply 50% border radius, so we'll have a perfect circle. We give it some padding, increase the font size to 1.5 rem, change the color to white and the background to orange. So let's style the H2 header. We set display inline block. We set text align center, give it some margin to the bottom, increase the font size 3 rem and the font width to make it bolder. We give it a color of orange and this font family. So when we run this, it looks like this, and the span and the H2 are all in line. So let's start the paragraph tag and the remaining items. So we select the paragraph tag inside the pop-up and we give it this styling. This is the styling for the paragraph text. So let's start the H5. We set margin bottom 1 rem, which is the same as 16 pixels. We change the color to this RGB color code. When we save all these, we see we have this here. So let's start the button. And it's also in the pop-up. Give it a class close btn. We set display block. We set width to 50% and set margin auto so that it will be aligned perfectly at the center from right to left or from left to right. We give it some padding, border radius, font width. We give it some color and the background color. Set cursor to pointer so that when we hover right, the cursor changes to pointer. Remove border and outline. So when we save this one, this is what we have. So let's add the hover effect for this button too. And as usual, we'll set some transition for it. So we'll select the button again, colon hover. When we hover, we'll change the background color to this RGB color code. So when we save, now when we hover, you see the color changes, the background color changes. Now let's move back to the pop-up div, the div with the class pop-up, and we'll add some styling. We'll set position absolute. We'll set top -7 rem. Because we applied absolute position to it, we can actually move it with top, bottom, left, and right. So we can actually state a figure, just like we are doing here. So now you can see it's moved up. Then we'll scale it to 0. And we'll set opacity 0. Now you can see we don't have it again. We can't see it again. Our goal now is to use JavaScript so that whenever we click on this button, it will make it appear on the page. And for that, we'll create a pseudo class in the container div and we'll call it show popup. We'll give some CSS styling inside of it. We'll set top 25%, opacity to 1, and scale also 1. When we save this, we realize nothing happens. When we click on this, nothing happens. So our job now is to use JavaScript to switch between this class for it, the popup, and also show popup for the popup div whenever we click on this button. So we are going to toggle between these two classes, the popup and show popup, to make it appear and also to hide it at the same time. So let's move to the index.js file, and we'll first select this button, the make payment button, and we'll also select the close button over here and the popup div itself. We'll start with the popup, so we'll declare a variable using the let keyword. We'll call it popup. Should be equal to, this should be lowercase, should be equal to document.querySelector in brackets, in quotes, a dot, we are selecting a class, and the class is popup. So we can also select the next one, and it's the close button, so let the close btn be equal to document.querySelector and a dot close btn. And finally, we'll select the payment btn. It's also a class, so with a dot. I'm using the prettier formatter, so whenever I save, it adds this semicolons to it and format my code for me. So now what we want to do next is to select the payment button and set an event listener on it so that whenever you click it, something will happen. So we'll take the payment button, dot add event listener, and it's a click event. So in quote, a comma, we'll set an error function. Whatever logic we define in this function will be executed whenever we click on the make payment button. And what we want to do is to add this class, the show popup class, to the popup div whenever we click on the button, which contains this kind of these stylings, so that we'll get the popup div back on the page. So in the JS, we take the popup dot class list dot add, and the class we want to add in quotes is show popup. Sorry, we don't need the dot. I'll paste it again with the dot. So let's try this and see if it works. So now when I click on the make payment button, you see that this transforms in. It makes it happen. So when we click this, it makes the pop-up show on the page. So now we also take the close btn so that whenever we click on it, we also remove the pop-up from the page. So when we click, it goes away. And that's fairly simple. So we can just copy this function, this entire thing, and paste again. And instead of payment btn, we'll make it close btn. The close btn. And when we click on it, instead of adding this class to it, the show popup class, we'll rather remove it. So we'll remove, and that's it. So when we save this and head over to the page, now when we click this, the pop-up div comes in, and when we click the close icon, it goes away. So we can click this to open and close it. But it happens very swift. So in the CSS, we'll add some transition so that we can see the actual effect. So over here, let's add some transition. It should ease in out. And when we save this, we come to the page, we can click this and it slides in. We click it and it fades away. So this works perfectly. And friends, this is what we promised to build in this video, and we have built this using HTML, CSS, and small JavaScript. If you find any value in this video so far, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this. If you have any questions, do leave it in the comment section. I'm Daniel. Thanks for watching.